I currently use an Eero Pro 6E tri-band mesh system in my home for my Wi-Fi in conjunction with my T-Mobile 5G home internet. Now, WavLink was kind enough to send over to me their brand new AX6000 dual band mesh router. It is just an individual router, and the trick that it has up its sleeve is instead of them trying to sell you an entire kit up front, you can kind of piece these together if you need to in order to get the right amount you need based on the square footage of your home. I do have a fairly large home, so I am interested to see how well the coverage is on this system because I only have one individual device. And because I have T-Mobile 5G home internet, my actual modem is upstairs on the top floor of my house because that's the best spot for me to get. It also means that I had to run less wire from the antenna that I put outside my home to the actual modem itself. So I am really interested to see how well that works from a reception standpoint, especially for those that are down in my basement. We do quite a bit of gaming in this house. We do a lot of streaming, and then overall I have the capability to work from home. So does my wife. And so there are a lot of things going on where we actually need the internet to work really well. And we do have a lot of people in our house, so that plays into that as well because every person that's using the internet is taking away from the bandwidth. And so I really like to see how well this router handles having a bunch of devices connected to it. And then I also would really just like to see overall, am I getting the same speeds that I'm getting on my Eero mesh system? So we're going to walk through some speed tests after we get this thing set up, and we're going to compare both Wi-Fi and Ethernet to my Eero Pro 6E system. So without further ado, let's take a look at what you get in the box with the WavLink AX6000. Real quick, I just want to show you the back of the box because it lists a lot of the specifications and what comes with the unit. So if you like to pause the video and take a look at that, go for it. But let's get this thing opened up and then I'll show you everything that comes inside, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get this thing set up. This unit has 8 high-powered antennas, and the router itself also offers orthogonal frequency division multiple access, or OFDMA, as well as multiple user, multiple input, multiple output, or basically what everybody just calls MIMO. And so you can use those individually or you can use those together depending on your needs, but the router does offer both of those. Now you will see that the antennas are fully adjustable, so you can get the best signal depending on your use case. Taking a look at the front of the device, we have some buttons and then some status lights here. So we're going to pause real quick. Now the pair button I originally thought was going to be for a WEP or WPA key, but it actually is how you connect these devices together if you want to use them as a mesh system. And then in the middle here we have our status lights. Now the only ones that are going to be on in terms of LAN 1 through 4 are the ones that have an actual device plugged into them. And then lastly we have a turbo button. And this button is going to clear the cache on the router itself. And in theory, that will help speed things up. Now, if we flip this over to the back, again, we're going to pause this real quick. Starting from left to right, we have a USB 3.0, and you can actually plug a hard drive into this to get some network attached storage. Next to that, we have a reset button. And then we have our LAN 1 through 4. And then next to that, we have our wide area network, or WAN. This is where you're going to plug your internet into your actual modem from your ISP. And then we have our power connector. And then lastly, we have our on-off button. Now, if we flip this upside down, we just have a couple of stickers with some information. You have a MAC address for your 2.4 gigahertz. You have your factory SSID, as well as the pair key. Taking a look at what else we get in the box, we do have a quick start guide. This is going to help you set the device up for those that don't do this frequently. And then we get our Ethernet cable as well as our power adapter. And then there's nothing else that comes inside the box at all. So now that we've gotten through all of that, let's go ahead and get this thing hooked up, and then we'll walk through the setup process on the actual computer itself. Here I have my dusty yet trusty T-Mobile 5G home internet gateway, and to get this hooked up, we're just going to take the provided Ethernet cable and we're going to plug it into the back of the gateway. Now, in my case, it doesn't matter which one of these ports I use, but your use case might be different, so just make sure you're plugging it into the correct spot. And then from there, I'm just going to plug it into the WAN port on the back of the WavLink. And then once that is complete, the only thing we need to do is connect the power. So I'm going to go ahead and just plug in the barrel connector. And then once we have that done, we're just going to go ahead and press the on-off button here next to the power connector. Now, if everything went according to plan, we should see it booting and we should have some status lights here on the front of the device. And so from here, we can go ahead and hop on the PC and then we can get this thing set up. The first thing we need to do in order to set this up is we need to go up to our Wi-Fi and connect to the WavLink Mesh SSID. And then from there, we're going to open a web browser and we're going to go to wavelogin.link. This is going to take us to a splash screen that's going to allow us to set up the router. So we're going to click Experience Now. It's going to detect our type of network. We're going to keep our WAN type at DHCP. And then I'm going to leave this off, and it has this feature here. I don't have another one in order to use the mesh function, but I'm just going to leave this on. Mountain. Dual band convergence, so that's going to give you one SSID instead of having them split apart. So you have one for 2.4 gigahertz and one for 5 gigahertz. I'm going to go ahead and leave that on and just let the router decide which one we get. I'm going to go ahead and create a Wi-Fi password. Under device management password, where it says same as the wireless password right here, if you leave this turned on, whatever password you set to connect to your network is also the password that's going to be able to log into the router and make changes. So if you don't want that, you want like an administrative password, you need to make sure that you turn this function off before moving forward. Now, Waveform does offer an iOS and an Android application that would allow you to set this up as well. I just like doing it personally on a computer. You should do it over Ethernet just to ensure that there's no issues when we do this, but because we have T-Mobile 5G home internet, I do not have a computer in the room that the gateway and the router are currently in and set up. I do have a laptop, but unfortunately it does not have an Ethernet port built into it. Okay, so from here we need to go back and reconnect to the network because we set a password. Once we reconnect, you just need to refresh the wavelogin.link website and then log back into the firmware of the router. So this is kind of what the firmware looks like when we first log in. This is our status screen. So you have your device information here, your Wi-Fi information here, and then your IPv4 and IPv6 information is here. Now we do have different settings that we can go ahead and change, and I'm actually going to change a couple of them. So if we go to Network and Advanced, you will see these are the settings that we have the option to mess with. Having a custom MTU is good for those that have 5G home internet, so that will allow you to change that if you need to. I'm not going to mess with anything in here at the moment. Wi-Fi will allow you to change your SSID name as well as your password. If we go to Advanced, you'll see there's some other settings here that we can change. If we go to Terminal, this will show us all of the devices that have connected to the router itself, and it will allow us to limit its upload and download speeds or block it entirely from accessing the network. If we go to More, it gives you a more advanced list of features that we can mess with. Now I'm going to zoom this in, and then I'm just going to click through these so you can kind of see what's in each section here. I'm not going to read them all off to you though. There are a couple of things of note. You are able to do parental controls. This does have the ability to have an internal VPN, and then under USB, you are able to connect a hard drive to the USB 3.0 port on the back of the device, and then that will turn that hard drive into network attached storage. And I'll cover that later in the video, but I just wanted to go through this so that you could see all of the features that it does have available in the firmware, but to click on each one of these and discuss each one of these would just take far too long. I actually want to go to my LAN. I want to change it to 4.1 and save. Now I'm doing this so that it matches my Eero and I don't have to reconfigure all the devices on my network. I have network attached storage and some other stuff, so that's why I'm changing my IP. Now I'm going to rename this what my old router is, so that all the devices in my house will automatically connect to it. And we're going to see what kind of load this thing can handle. Now, let's go to the terminal and look at all the devices as they start to connect. And this is a list you scroll through. You see all the stuff that's connecting. Now let's take a look at how you take a hard drive, plug it into the USB port on the back of the router, and turn that into network attached storage. So what we need to do is we need to go to the firmware, we need to go to the More tab at the top, and then we need to select USB and then Storage Server. From there, it's going to give us the IP address of the hard drive that we've plugged in. And then you're going to see username and password here. If you click on the button right here on the right of password, it will actually show you what the password is. Now you can change these to whatever you want, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to just leave them at the factory username and password. So once you have all of that information, you can hop on over to your computer. We are going to be doing this on a Mac using Mac OS Sonoma. And so the process is going to be different for you if you're using Windows or Linux. Now, if I try to open this using the GUI, clicking on my network within my hard drive here on the left, it will see the hard drive under OpenWRT, but when I try and mount it, it doesn't work. And that's because it needs a username and password. So what we need to do is we need to go up to the Go menu under Finder, and then we're going to select Connect to Server. Now on a Mac, I don't have to type in any of the stuff to use Samba. I can just type in the IP address that was listed on the web page. Then when I select Connect, it should give me a prompt here for a username and password, and then we're just going to enter the username and password that was on the website or the firmware page that we had loaded here. And so once we do that and click Connect, it should connect to the drive, and you'll see that we have SDA1 and SDA2, and I think that's just because of the way the drive is formatted. So I'm just going to pick one, and then we'll see how big the actual drive is. So for SDA1, if we right click on it and click Get Information, we'll be able to see here that it is actually only a couple of 100 megabytes. So we need to go back in and redo this and then select SDA2. And once we do that, you'll see that SDA2 is the 256 gig drive. It gives us the majority of our storage here. So this is where we're going to want to save all of our files. Now, as an experiment, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a copy of a video file that I created and uploaded to YouTube previously. It's about 1.25 gig. You can see that here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and upload that to this hard drive and then play it from the network on this drive, and then delete the file and see if that works. As you can see, transferring the video file to the hard drive was successful without any issues. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this off my desktop really quick, and then I'm gonna go ahead and open the hard drive, and as you can see, the file is here. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up, and then we're gonna see if it'll play from the network. And as you can see, it is playing without any issues. I did mute the audio so that I'm not trying to talk over myself. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try and delete the file from the hard drive and just make sure that that is also successful. And then just to be safe, we're going to go ahead and empty the trash just to make sure that it's gone. And as you can see, it is completely wiped from the hard drive, so there's no issues there. So next we're going to move on to doing some speed tests and see how that plays out in comparison to my Eero Pro 6E. The first thing I want to do is do a speed test down here in my basement, which is the furthest point away from the actual router because it is up on the top floor of my house. And you'll see that I'm actually getting quite decent speeds for being so far away from the router. So we got 276.68 megabits per second down, and then our upload came in at 139.39 megabits per second up, and this is over Wi-Fi. Now, as an average, as I've been using this for the last couple of weeks, we will see that my Eero Pro 6E came in approximately 31% better on download over Wi-Fi than the WavLink. Now you'll see that even though the Wi-Fi speed is slightly lower on the WavLink system, it is actually beating my Eero Pro 6E system in both ping and upload speeds. Now, when we switch over to Ethernet, it's going to tell just a little bit of a different story. The numbers are a lot more comparable here. As we take a look at the Ethernet chart, you'll see that the ping, the download speed, and the upload speeds are all very comparable between the Eero Pro 6E and the WavLink AX6000. The ping was one off, download speeds are very close, but where the WavLink actually shines, again, is the upload speed. It beat out my Eero both over Wi-Fi and Ethernet. Well, this was just a quick look at the WavLink AX6000 router. And again, I really appreciate them taking the time to send this over to me for review. And if you have any questions about this device at all, hit me up down in the comments and let me know, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. But that's about all I have for this one. So without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.